Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. There are those here who have not seen this before who would say, indeed, it is the human being. The voice is the same, the personality, the face, all is the same. How could a transition occur in such a short amount of time from one on one side of the veil to the other on the other? And I will tell you, it didn't. For what my partner has permitted in these years is a meld to take place all of the time. The distance between us shortens with each year. And therefore, it would be said that my partner has refined and cleared the path for a transition to this fashion that you would say is instantaneous. No preparation, because he's already ready. No preparation, because the room is ready. No preparation, because the hearts are ready. This is the way of communication in these days. For those who have the intent to listen and the one who has the intent to give. For instant communication is possible, and the days of massive preparation to prepare the human body for this kind of a thing are lessening, because the human body is ready for this kind of thing. The entourage pours in here. I want to tell you something. Get ready for this. Let me ask you this. No matter how many children you have, are there too many for you to love? Well, think bigger. In an interdimensional scope, think bigger. Think out of the box of singularity and imagine what it would be like for this entity in love with you. I know you. I know of your lives. I know what you've been through. I'm going to talk about that right now, this very time. I know about this year. I know the ones you've loved and lost this year. You know who I'm talking to, don't you? Listen up. Well, the message is going to be given one time, because it is a profound message about the time you live in, the month you live in, the year that you're in, and what's happened here on this planet in these months. There will be those apart from the ones in what you call this time period who are listening now and who are reading now. I see them, I see you, I know who you are. This message is for you as well. Listen up. It's going to explain some things you need to hear. There's energy here, should you choose to feel it. Energy of love, should you choose to feel it, no matter what your situation is. Listen, doubter. Listen, doubter, are you too dense to feel the love of God? Could you believe, perhaps just for a moment, there is more to the universe than you think? Maybe there is indeed a power that is intelligent, that loves you and knows your name. Even if you buy off on no other thing, if you don't absorb any other metaphysical thing, maybe you're not ready for it, but maybe you can feel it. Is that too much? Just sit and feel loved. Just for a few moments. Could you open your heart and let that happen? And it's the beginning of letting us in. And nothing is going to happen to you, dear human being, other than an expanded consciousness the next time you let a little more in. I must precede this message with a teaching about numerology. I must precede this message with a teaching about the equivalency of energy and year sums. All this to say is I must give you an insight as to the numerological values of the years that you have been sitting in this one and the energy of them. Numerology is the study of the energy of numbers. In your particular case, it's limited to numerology because you still do it in base 10. There are 10 integers, 1 through 0, that you use. And so that's what we will use. And the explanation that follows, no matter how big a number is, add it together until you get one number. With the exception of the master numbers, which are double, like 11 and 22 and 33 and so on, make one number out of them, and it will give you insight into the energy of what the number means. There are those who would doubt this process. If you're a doubter, I ask you to go add up the numbers of things like your birthdays, the things around you, including your numerological alpha numbers, using your 26 letters. Assign the numbers to them and have a number for your name. You're going to be surprised. If you study numerology, it'll tell a lot about who you are, the potentials that might be there. Truly, there's only 9 numbers that you use. 1 through 9, you consider the 0, just as in your math. Toss it aside and get one number. I'll show you it. Take, for instance, the year that is coming, 2008. If you add the numbers together, they become a 10. If you throw away the 0, it is a 1. So the numerological sum and the energy of what is coming next year is 1. I will tell you what that means in a moment if you're not already aware. There's something occurring with the year's structure in front of you that you are not honoring and have not thought of. 1987 was the harmonic convergence. That is a 7-year using numerology. 7 in numerological terms has the energy of sacredness, a sacred year for a sacred event. Indeed. If you had seen that, done the numerology, you would have had an inkling as to what might have happened with your free choice, and it did. A sacred decision took place in that year. If you would do the numerology regarding the year that Kryon arrived, 1989, I told you what it was in the first book. I gave you 2 numbers to look at in the first book. The first was the number 9, and that is the number of the year, 1989. I said that there would be 2 numbers that would define the age. I told you there would be 2 numbers of Kryon. That the 9 stood for completion, and that the other number, which was a master number, which was 11, stood for illumination. 9/11. And back in 1989, you had no concept of what 9/11 would become. Go look for it. It is there. Oh, it is there. Oh, doubter, look for it. Go find it 18, 19 years ago. It's there. We talked about those 2 numbers, and look at what they mean to you today. What do they mean to you today? Do they mean fear or sorrow? Or do you look at their numerological values and see the end of the old into illumination of the new? That's what it's about. The year 2002 is when they finished the grid. I told you they would. I told you when the grid was complete into a new place, a new configuration. 2002 is a 4. If you know your numerological energies, 4 is Gaia. It is Mother Earth. It's an earth energy. That wasn't an accident that we selected that time. That was the energy for it. It all comes together, all part of the puzzle, all meaning something. You sit in 2007. There is something remarkable about the transition you have between 2007 and 2008. It is the first time this particular transition happened in the first millennium of the 2000s. It is the first occurrence of the 9 and the 1 together. It happens every decade. This is the first one. It is the first one within the generation of the 2012 change. All of this should have been flagged for you. You should have looked at it very carefully and said, what is going to happen when you go into a 2007, which is a 9, against a 2008, which is a 1? The completion going into 1, which is new beginnings. What happens when you complete one thing and start another? You'll say, well, Kryon, it happens every decade. This is the first one. And this is the only one that's going to happen in that scenario. I'm going to explain something to you now that is very difficult for my partner to relate to, for it is not linear. It is the second time that I've given him this picture, and this is the time I chose for the recording, for I'd like him to have seen it one time before. Let the transcription show that this is the second time this message was given for clarity. 2007 is an end year, a completion. The very number shouts the end. The very number shouts the completion of things. Let me tell you what it is really. It's a transconfiguration of an energy platform to allow you to go into a new beginning platform, fresh and clean. It is not an upgrade. It does not take an old energy and add to it. This is linear. You're expecting linear power. You expect all things to happen in a linear fashion. If you exercise a muscle over time, you expect it to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and the more you exercise it, the bigger it will get. And you apply all of that to energy in general, and that's not the way it works. For the energy that we give to you, which is metaphysical, which is interdimensional, which is spiritual, is not linear. And there is an attribute that took place this year, listen up, this is for you, that you need to know about. Because in these last 4 months, the energy you depended on, the energy you thought would be there, the things that should have happened in clarity did not. And we know they did not because you're in the year of the 9. And seemingly collapse began. And instead of good things, many of you had things that were challenging. Some of you lost connection to spirit altogether. Some of you are wondering where this is going and what has happened and why you did not get what you had asked for. And I'll tell you, this is because all that is taking place at this moment is a wind down of all the gifts and the tools you've had in order to bring them to a zero level, reconfigure them, and burst upon the scene. And so there's a space of time from now till then we have some advice for. But before we go any further, we would like to tell you this. This reconfiguration is not linear. It doesn't make sense to you why the energy would have to go away just so it would come back. But that is the way of it. That's the way of it. Some of you have been through challenging thoughts and times in these last months. I know who sits before me. I know who reads these words. I know who hears this message. Oh, dear human being, do not blame yourself for what has transpired or what has not transpired. I'm going to say, I want you just to hold on. Don't blame yourself. For it is common with human beings on a cause and effect relationship to blame themselves profusely when things don't go the way they think they should spiritually. I want to give you 2 examples. And they're going to shock you. You didn't expect me to talk about these people. Precious people, a man and a woman. 2,000 years apart. And the first one is this. I want to take you to a place that you know well. I know where I am. I know where I speak. I know of the energy of this place, of this land. So I'm going to give you an example you'll understand, and that is this. Consider for a moment the Jew called Jesus, who is on the cross, seemingly being crucified, seemingly at the point of death, as he is there. And as recorded history will say, not accurately, for the words were not these, but he said, "My God, why have you forsaken me?" He didn't say that. what he said is, "Where have you gone? Where have you gone?" He felt a withdrawal. He felt all the guides, all of the entities which he counted on, all of the wisdom drained from his body. He felt the darkness and the blackness invade him. Past the bubble of security that he had had all of his life as the master of wisdom and love that he was. And he cried out for help, and it was recorded, transcribed, and given to you. Its history. Did you ask yourself, how could someone so close to God have such a feeling? Let me tell you this. This was a non-linear shift of energy. He was taken to zero for just a moment so he could go into something called ascension. And it all came back. You didn't hear it when it came back. You didn't hear him go, ah. You didn't hear him say that. It wasn't recorded, you see. And all the love of God poured into him with more than he ever had before. That's the way it works. For a moment he blamed himself, and as the human he was, for a moment, just a moment, he questioned his faith. He's a precious woman whose whole life was lived under the umbrella of compassion. The older she got, the more compassionate she became. And she's one of you. And her name was Mother Teresa. I would like to tell you about this woman. She died in sorrow. You might say, why would such a woman who is so close to God in this day die in sorrow with all the things that she had been done, with the reverence that had been placed upon her very name for the sainthood which would follow? Why would she die in sorrow? And I'll tell you this, because she was a linear human being who did not understand the shift of energy. Years before her death, her energy shifted. It went to zero, and on came the new station to tune to. The old station was gone, begging her to change the way she did things so that she could come upon that very element of energy that the Master had, that of ascension status. And it was there for her, and she didn't understand, and she thought that she had been left alone. She lost her connection. Been transcribed, it has. Why would God do such a thing? Why would God depart from the saint of compassion? And I'll tell you, God never did. She misinterpreted the change of energy. The same thing is happening in a general way right now. Going away slightly so it can come back strong. And had this compassionate, beautiful woman understood to tune to the next station, literally to change the way that she meditated, the way she contacted spirit, to go around the protocol and speak to the Master directly, she would have had it. But she stayed within her teaching, and nothing happened, and she died in sorrow. Oh, she never lost her compassion, for that was her gift. Don't blame yourself. We have some advice, we have some awarenesses. Do not change your path. Don't make any startling moves because of what's happened or what you feel. These are times that are difficult, especially for light workers. You have lost your connection for a little bit, only for a little bit. Go through the rest of this year. It starts to change very soon, very, very soon. Some of you have felt this more than others. Some of you have stayed centered so much so that it has only been a glitch in the way you feel. And others of you have been decimated. Have not understood it. I speak to many who are not in the room. Don't blame yourself. Don't make sharp decisions and paths. Communications is interrupted. That is it not, one of the attributes of the retrograde? And in this particular case, it's communications with the system. Communications with those things in meditation. There is a dispensation given to you. When you will come to a place like this, in mass, filled with those who want to hear a message like this, a dispensation for these moments where you can connect right now, because there are those here who will enhance that, one for another, family with family. When you leave the place, you'll wonder where it went. It's like a constant ongoing retrograde. It explains why you're not sleeping, why meditation is more difficult. You know what it's going to affect? I want you to be circumspect, careful, slow to anger, and patient. Light worker, listen to me in these next weeks. Slow to anger and patient, please. Because some of the tools that you've counted on in these last years that you developed very strongly, right now at their lowest ebb, they have to go down in order to come back. And this holiday season brings family together, and that's when sometimes the sparks fly, don't they? If you're assaulted verbally, I want you to answer in love. It's time to practice. To practice what you know, even without the enhancement of the angel standing next to you. Slow to anger. Slow to speak. Answer with love. Cry later. Relationships have the ability to burst apart. The glue that holds them together quite often is strained to the max during these times of diminishing energy before it comes back. I tell you this so you make no decisions rashly. Answer with love. Hold on. You've been in it for 4 months. It's not going to get worse. It just is what it is. And so we say to stay where you are and make it work, because it's coming back. I know who's here. I know who's listening. I know who's reading. It's a message for a few months. That's what it is. But it's a timeless message on how Spirit works with these kinds of stair steps of energy in important times, especially those in the first part of a millennium shift. New co-creative gifts are upon you. You're not going to have to try so hard. My partner gave you today some advice which I gave him to give you. And that was that co-creation requires synchronicity. Synchronicity requires that you stand up and go and be and do in order to meet those who will create the synchronicity with you and for you. God is not going to fall on you with a miracle. And in these times, the advice is this: don't move too fast. Answer with love. Be patient. And then feel the love of God. That never goes away. All the tools may vanish for a little while and come back, but the love of God is forever. It is the family. I know you, dear one. I'll see you soon, dear one, no matter how old you think you are. Young person, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to see you soon. In the bat of an eyelash, a generation goes by for me. You come and you go many times. There's masters in the room. They don't even know they're masters. There are those who think they're nothing, who are shamans. That's the message. One given in love. It's a reality message. Perhaps it doesn't have the fluff you expected, but it does. For God loves you so much that Spirit wants to enhance your life by telling you you're not at fault for what has happened in these 4 months or what you felt in these 4 months, to give you how you can survive the next few weeks into the next year. We are here with you. The entourage that comes in now leaves. Or doesn't. We tell you this, as some of you rise from the chairs. Stop listening as some of you put down the book. How would you like to take some of this with you? Some of the energy that I bring in right now. It is available to take with you. So even though Kryon goes away, some of the energy remains in an interdimensional state, hovering, ready to go into your consciousness. Dear light worker, dear changer of the planet, even those who don't believe any of what's happening right now, there's a potential in you, medicine man, that you've known all your life. Believe what you choose, but don't ever sacrifice the love of God. Go peacefully. Answer with love. Until the next time, I am Kryon, lover of humanity. And so it is. Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. Can you feel the shift? And there would be those who say, well, I'm not really sure. What should I feel? And the answer is different. Dear ones, you come into a place like this, and there is a countenance and an attitude that you have. It's not a bad attitude, it's just an attitude. It's one of listening. It's one of study. It's one of perhaps note-taking. It's one that may even be that it's part logical, part intellectual, part spiritual, but that is what you need in order to attend and listen and be. And now I'm asking you to stop all of that. I want you to take that which is yours, that comes with common sense and intrinsic knowledge of who you are, and put it forward. Almost like you were the shaman that I know you are. Dear ones, every single one of you comes in with an amazing amount of knowledge from being on this planet so many times. There's a tremendous library here of anyone who's listening that would fill the planet itself with wisdom and knowledge. If you could echo it, if you could bring it forward, if you could teach it, you'd fill libraries. I see this. So why don't you just be still and listen? I want you to first feel the fact that that which is inside you and starts to react is that which is the other side of the veil that's in you. You come in with something and it stays with you. It's not on the other side of the veil. You brought it. And that is the compassion and the love of God, the Creator, whatever you want to call it. It's the best friend you ever had because it is not separate from you. That's the biggest truth that we can give you. And in the process then of listening, I want you to hear something. I want to talk to you about the future just a little bit. I wish to talk to you about the things that are potentially here for you. The shift and the speed of the evolving human is completely and totally variable and is up to you. The dark-light balance of the planet is starting to shift and there's becoming more light. How fast will it take for the darkness to diminish to a place where eventually it will be a non-issue? And the answer is as long as it takes. Every civilization who has faced this has had its own scenario based on its past. You may have the same thing, but know this: these things will happen. How fast, how slow, is up to you. The paradigm shifts that you're going to have, I have spoken about before, somewhat isolated, in channels that perhaps you have heard or not. This time I want to combine some. The combination of the four things that I wish to speak of is an interesting one, because to you some are believable and some are not. And the ones that are not will be because of your past. And there'll be a part of your brain that say, well, things just don't work that way. And you will be one who is reciting a past energy that you've brought forward to judge with. You can't do that. You have to draw a demarcation line in 2012 of what you think is human nature. Because what I'm about to tell you will defy a lot of that. So the premise is this: human nature itself will start to evolve past what you thought it was or have experienced through your life. So you cannot take the past and project the future. And we've said that before. There is a scenario, a paradigm that you have used in all of your contests, in all of that which is sports, in all of that which is politics and government. It is a paradigm that is something you simply do. And the paradigm is this: that you have a contest, and there'll be player A or group A, or player B or group B. And they will compete and play until the end. One of them wins. The other one loses. And the paradigm is winner takes all. Apply this, see this, and it's everywhere. And you would say, well, what else is there? And that's the point. There is a what else. But dear ones, human nature has never seen it. We'll call it the win-win. And you will say, wait a minute, Kryon, you can't have a win-win when you have a sports contest. You have a scoreboard, you have players. Yes, you can, and it will occur to you, and that will be a system. You'll slap your heads and go, who ever thought of this? Where it's not exactly winning. Let me give you something to think about. Your politics is as an old energy as you can imagine. 200 years ago, it was new. It changed the planet. It was revolutionary. You had things that no one had ever heard of. The human rights that you have, the separation that you had between church and state, and all of these things, revolutionary, because the planet had never seen it. 200 years later, it is stagnant. Have you noticed? Doesn't work. The winner take all doesn't work. You cannot have representatives of both sides. You cannot have that different parties where one simply wins everything and takes over. What happens to the other? They fight the first one until it's their turn. And what do you have? Ineffective government. You're seeing it. It's not just now. Dear ones, you've been seeing it for a decade or more. What if I told you there is a more elegant way? There is a win-win. There was the realization you don't need winner take all. It doesn't work. What you need is the best one that can not only compromise but put the two together in the most sensible way. You don't need to elect a leader from one or the other. You need a complete and total separate group called the compromisers. And you will then elect one who is the best one to put the puzzles together. And the first one that thinks of that and implements it won't be an American. It'll come from some other source. And you will see it and go, oh, that might work here. Why is it going to be someone else? Because you're stuck in a rut. And you have history to answer for that, where nothing moves past winner takes all. You're going to have to see something from somewhere else that makes total sense, that is more elegant, to apply it here. What I'm telling you, let me ask you, doesn't that sound like a more elegant solution than what you have? Is it possible? You'd say human nature doesn't work that way. We can't elect somebody without a platform. What if the platform is solution? That's the platform. I'm going to run on the solution platform. What are your ideas? I'm going to solve the issues between red and blue. That's what I'm going to do. And that is then has another person who also does it. Who is going to be the one who gets the best solutions? And they're neither party. They belong to the S party, solution party. That's out of the box, isn't it? Completely out of the box of the government that you think is here. It's going to come from somewhere else. Win-win. Is it possible? And the answer is yes. Because of its elegance and its maturity, it will work. Dear ones, just like 200 years ago worked. It really worked because it was time to work. And this one will too. This is a new paradigm. You're going to see it. How soon are we going to see it? Not soon. But you will see it. And when it occurs, it's going to be a breath of fresh air. You're going to say, finally, somebody figured it out. Because winner takes all doesn't work. That's number one. Now we start to get to plans that you think won't work ever. Unless you take into consideration an advanced and more elegant kind of consciousness that works together. You have a system of building things, of manufacturing things, and you might call it corporate. They all fit parts together. And in order for it to work with an older human nature, there has to be hierarchy of management. You're all familiar with it, the one at the top, the one at the bottom. As the hierarchy goes down, the managers, the systems, the departments that are split off, and the workers. They all need each other to work. But let's say, for instance, that on the production line, there's an issue. And the production line is seeing something that is an issue because it's a problem nobody thought of. Right now, the process is this. Continue to manufacture dysfunctional things until management is informed. And then something interesting happens. You can only inform the management which is directly above you, who may not take it any further because there's somebody up there who doesn't like anybody taking problems to them. So suddenly you've got dysfunctional products that continue to be dysfunctional. And the ones on the production line are saying, why are we continuing to do something that doesn't work? That manager won't talk to the one above them, who will never hear the information. If it even gets there, it takes a long time. Meanwhile, sales start to drop because there is a dysfunctional product being made. Are you starting to see the issues of hierarchy? It is fraught with human nature, with ego, with jealousy, with money and greed. What if there were a better system? Right now, there isn't. Because in a linear fashion of human nature, that's as good as it gets. What if I could tell you something's coming? A new system you've never seen before. A system you say cannot work. What if the ones on the production line say, what would be the answer? And they get together and say, well, if you move this to here, it won't be dysfunctional. And so immediately they take a vote. They never inform their manager. And they fix the problem. And then they inform their manager there was a problem that they fixed. Now that manager is going to be so happy with that, he's going to pass it on to his boss and say, there was a problem, I fixed it. And the one above that will go on to the top and say, there used to be a problem down here, but you don't have to worry about it. It got fixed by the people under me. And suddenly everybody wins, including the consumer. Do you see where I'm going here? Now, that doesn't exist, not really. Now, there are some service companies that are starting to see how it might work and implement systems that are close to it, but not ones where the workers have full and complete control over what they're doing, because they are next to the ones who are consuming. They're putting it in the can and closing the can, so to speak. This is a paradigm that we're going to take wisdom, elegant design, and a new kind of human nature to make it work in a way that is flawless. It's a paradigm you're going to see. It'll have a name, like they all do. It'll be called revolutionary, like they all are. And it'll go through stages of working and not working until they get it right. But when it's done, they will look backwards over the hierarchical system and say, those were the old days. Why didn't we hear this sooner? Why didn't we do this sooner? It's a smart thing. This is evolution. This is evolution at corporate level. You didn't think I'd talk about that. But it's going to be evolution everywhere, not just in New Age esoteric things. Dear ones, we're talking about human nature changing. And in the process, you'll see other things change that make sense. It makes it easier to go from day to day with you, with systems that are far more, would say, compassionate. And that's the word. One of the things that's going to start changing, this is the third one, is that which you describe as intuition is going to come out of the box. How would you describe intuition right now? Many of you would say that it's the fleeting energy that you may or may not recognize that would help guide you to something that you should know. And quite often it's missed. It's missed because it's fleeting, because it's not something that sits in front of it that you can analyze. It whisks through your mind and you say, did I hear that or not? What was that again? And you don't get it again. An evolved human being will start to use intuition, and it's going to get slower. And what that means is it's going to go by slower, and you can look at it and analyze it and know what happened. And because the reason, literally, the reason for this is the innate of the body is going to start becoming closer to that which is the consciousness of the body. You won't have to muscle test ever again. What is your blood type? You will say it even though you don't know it. What's happening right now? You'll say it even though you don't know it. What do you think is the dosage of this vitamin? You'll know it. Your body will tell you. It'll be from your lips to the air because it's intuitive. It's not hiding with an innate that is in the background as it is today. Think of this. Today, you could have something like a cancer growing in your body as you sit here, and you will know it. You're not going to know it until something hurts, until something is wrong. Then you're going to go have an examination. Then they're going to run tests. And then a week later, they'll give you the news. You got something growing. Meanwhile, how much time has passed since it started? It seems like it's a system that's broken in the body. It is. That's not how you were designed, dear ones. You were designed for innate to be part of consciousness 24/7. And that is starting to be you. And what that means is that if there's any inappropriate thing in you that would unbalance you chemistry, if there's any disease, is there anything at all, you'll know it on day one. At the same time your white blood cells know it. You'll know it. Because you're hooked to it. It won't be a system that is autonomous, that operates in the dark from you. That's what you have today. Did you ever think that that was broken? Now you know it is. Not everything is as it seems, dear ones. You got this beautiful body. It doesn't even talk to itself. It will. When you start evolving into this energy we are speaking of, can you imagine the issues of health that will disappear? Because you'll know it instantly, and you'll know what to do, and the innate will tell you. The balance will come so fast, you'll never see anybody about any problem. You'll know what to do. Can you imagine your healthcare system when you're solving it as you go? There are things you haven't even thought about. Things don't need to get worse on this planet. They don't need to double and triple in their complexity, because things are coming that will solve that. I want to ask you something. Don't you go back 50, 60, 70 years and have an interview with somebody who says, here is what your future is going to be like. And you're going to talk about things like Wi-Fi. And they're going to look at you and say, what fi? They'll say, I have that at home. It's my stereo system. No, that's not Wi-Fi. That's hi-fi. They'll say, what is it? How do you explain it when they haven't got the internet? How do you explain the internet when they don't have a computer? How do you explain computers when literally everybody's doing things on paper? You do realize, don't you? You launched the missile to the moon. That missile which carried those men without a computer. Not really. All done by hand. And if you started then telling them what Wi-Fi really was after you explained computers and after you explained the internet and you got the Wi-Fi, they're asleep by then, because they'll say, no, that cannot happen. That won't happen. That's impossible. So I've just given you Wi-Fi for the future. That's a metaphor. That's paradigms that you cannot believe because the things that precede them you don't know about. These things will happen slowly and then will then become manifested in the things that I'm describing. Imagine intuition that is connected to innate. You'll stand at a problem and you will expect intuitive answers. And you'll wait for them, and then they'll show up. And that, my friends, is not the way it works today. It's potluck. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. Did you know that in DNA, the whole process of innate intuition, all of that, hooked to the pineal, the heart, the brain, the triad that we've talked about before, it needs to have an evolved consciousness for it to work as designed. Right now, it is not working as designed. That was number 3. Number 4 is going to be the hardest one. Dear ones, there's going to come a time when the education for your children is going to be revamped from top to bottom. Totally and completely different than anything that exists on the planet right now. And there will be those of you who say, well, I expect that could happen. But the challenge of making it happen is almost insurmountable. Because an old human nature will not let you go there. The opposition to this is enormous. If you start then changing the way children are taught, you'll have opposition from those parents who say, well, we know how to teach our children. Don't tell us. You'll hit the opposition of ego, of common sense, of the way it used to be, of what people have tried and failed. All of the things that we've told you don't apply. not in a new energy. There has to be a system that would allow it to be seen so dramatically that there will be no question that it needs to be done. So it's not going to happen all at once. And it may not happen here. Here we go. There will be schools start up that are revolutionary, that are doing everything that the children of a new consciousness need. Everything will be different from the very beginning, preschool to graduation. How fast they learn, what they're given, the camaraderie between them, deciding how fast they will go, the agreements between the children, instead of a hierarchy of teachers and principals, deciding what they're going to learn, when they're going to learn it, and how fast they can go. Completely and totally designed, built, and run by those who have to learn in the chairs. Because they'll have the consciousness of the wisdom to know why they're there, and they'll have control over everything they do. The outcast will be the one who is in the group, who doesn't see that consciousness. They will be thrown out by the others. Not by principal. Not by a teacher. Teaching itself will be something that is a cooperative instead of a student and teacher. There will be an alliance of knowledge, a celebration of things learned, a party given when the tests are passed. All of these things completely and totally opposite from what happens now. What do you think? I ask you to think about this. Is this a doable deal? And you'll say no. It's just fraught with problems of human nature. And I want to tell you that is correct. The old human nature will never allow it. The new human nature gradually will put it in place. And what will cause the great aha is when the students start being graduated from these special schools and they are head and shoulders above anything you've ever seen. They'll pass tests that children can't pass today. They'll qualify for jobs that are not qualifiable today. And governments and cities will look at that and say, we must have this. Let's wipe away the old. That's how it works. You know it does. That's taking advantage of what elegant human nature is going to become. You'll start being motivated toward the things you see that are better and that work. And you will not have in the way the business, the greed, the protocols, all of the things you have now that stop progress will be removed. And that's where you get in trouble. Impossible. I'll talk to you in 50 years. We'll see how we're doing. Because you'll laugh and say, well, I didn't believe it could happen, and here it starts. Maybe even before that, dear ones, how fast do you want to move? That's going to be up to you completely. Old souls unite. Unite in wisdom and balance. Old souls unite. You start balancing, getting out of fear, and these things start to take a whole different life. How you treat others, how you react to things that old human nature said, well, this is how humans react, and you don't. Suddenly, you're shamanic in the way you act. You have wisdom with things that people say, well, you shouldn't be acting that way. And you say, well, I am. Because I have peace in my heart, who I am, what's going on in the planet. I just gave you 4 paradigm shifts. Some you believe, some are unbelievable. Just remember, go explain Wi-Fi to an Indian. Then come back. And you will see what I'm talking about. The paradigms of humanity itself are going to move in directions nobody thought. Watch for it. Be ready for it. Old soul, use the wisdom to accept those things that are acceptable. And throw away those things that smack of the old energy. There will be those who want to sell you snake oil. That's a metaphor. Here comes a brand new invention and you should have it. And it turns out to be just the old stuff. There'll be those who want to climb on the bandwagon of changing consciousness. And you will say, wow, that looks impressive, until you examine the system they have or them themselves. And you'll say, no, it's just repackaged old energy. Watch for this, know the difference. Because when these things start happening, there's a lot who will want to get on board who really are not ready. That shouldn't surprise you, because that in itself is old consciousness. Go from this place different than you came, with knowledge and potentials to think about, with hope for the planet that you might not have had before, and inside with a knowingness that you're in the right place at the right time. Solutions are being developed right now as you sit. All of you listening to this. Solutions for you for the things you came for. And so it is.